The rope fibers snapped with a sound like a gunshot, and Xander Voss watched in horror as the orc woman plummeted past him on the cliff face, her amber eyes wide with shock as gravity claimed her. His body moved before his mind caught up. Years of climbing these mountains had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now those instincts screamed at him to act. He released his own handhold and launched himself sideways, fingers outstretched, catching the thick leather strap of her climbing harness as she fell. The sudden weight nearly ripped his shoulder from its socket, but he held on, his other hand scrambling for purchase on the rock face. His fingers found a crack, wedged in deep, and he gritted his teeth against the pain as their combined weight threatened to tear him apart. "I have got you," he gasped, though he was not entirely sure that was true. His fingers were already going numb in the crack, and his other arm felt like it was on fire. The orc woman dangled below him, spinning slowly in the mountain wind, her pack still strapped to her back, and adding at least another 30 pounds to her already considerable weight. She looked up at him, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Her green skin was pale with shock, and one of her small tusks caught her lower lip as she stared. Xander had lived in these mountains for 5 years, and in all that time, he had never been this close to an orc. The war had ended 7 years ago, but the hatred lingered. Most humans still crossed the street when they saw one of the green-skinned people, and most orcs returned the favor. "Let me go," she said, and her voice was lower than he expected, husky and rough. "You cannot hold us both." "Not happening," Xander said through gritted teeth. His fingers were starting to slip in the crack, and he could feel hot blood trickling down his wrist where the rock had torn his skin. "Can you swing yourself? Try to find a foothold." She was already moving, her powerful legs swinging back and forth like a pendulum. On the third swing, her boot caught a narrow ledge and some of the weight lifted from his tortured arm. She pulled herself up with impressive strength, one hand reaching for a handhold, then another. Within moments, she had climbed level with him, pressed against the cliff face with her eyes closed and her chest heaving. "Thank you," she said, and the words sounded like they cost her something. Xander did not answer right away. He was too busy trying to work feeling back into his fingers and assess the damage to his shoulder. It hurt like hell, but he could still move it. Nothing torn, probably, though he would be sore for days. "We need to keep moving," he said finally. "This cliff face is not stable." "That is probably why your rope snapped." She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Xander was used to that look, the one that took in his size and build and tried to decide if he was a threat. He was a big man, broad-shouldered and thick-armed from years of working the mountains, with a dark beard that he kept trimmed short and hair that was probably too long but he never bothered to cut. He wore practical climbing clothes, all leather and wool, with a pack strapped tight to his back. "I am Kara," the orc woman said. "Kara Stonefist, formerly of the Iron Ridge clan." The formerly caught his attention, but he did not press. "Xander Voss, I have got a cabin about 2 hours' climb from here if we take the eastern route. You are welcome to rest there and check your gear before you try this again." She hesitated, and he could see the conflict in her face. Trust did not come easy between their peoples, and she had every reason to be suspicious of a human offering help. But she also had a torn rope and was stuck on a cliff face with evening coming on fast. The mountains were unforgiving to those caught unprepared after dark. "I accept," she said at last, "and I will pay you for your hospitality. I have coin." "Keep your coin," Xander said, already starting to climb. "Just try to keep up." The eastern route was easier but longer, winding along natural shelves and ledges that made for secure handholds. Xander took his time, conscious of his injured shoulder, and the fact that Kara was carrying a heavy pack. He could hear her breathing behind him, steady and controlled, and he found himself impressed by her endurance. She moved well on the rock, with the kind of confidence that came from experience. The sun was touching the western peaks when they finally reached the narrow trail that led to his cabin. It was barely visible from below, tucked into a fold of rock and surrounded by hardy pine trees that somehow found purchase in the thin mountain soil. Xander had built it himself 3 years ago, after he had decided that the small frontier town in the valley below was still too full of people for his liking. "You live here alone?" Kara asked as they approached. Her voice held a note of surprise, maybe respect. "Mostly," Xander said. He opened the door and gestured for her to enter. "Sometimes I guide hunters or help search for lost climbers, but yes, mostly alone." The cabin was a single large room with a sleeping loft above and a stone fireplace that took up most of one wall. It was tidy in the way of a man who lived alone and had plenty of time to keep things organized. His bed was neatly made, his few dishes cleaned and stacked, his tools hung on the wall in careful rows. A stack of books sat on a small table near the fire, and animal pelts covered the floor and walls for insulation. Kara stood in the center of the room, looking around with those sharp amber eyes. Xander tried to see it from her perspective, a human man living alone in the mountains, far from his own kind. What did that suggest about him? Nothing good, probably. Most people fled to the wilderness because they could not hack it in civilization. "I will start a fire," he said, moving to the hearth. "You can set your pack down anywhere. There is a water barrel outside if you need to wash up." She nodded and carefully lowered her pack to the floor. As she straightened, Xander saw her wince and reach for her side. A dark stain was spreading across her leather shirt just below her ribs. "You are bleeding," he said sharply. She looked down, seeming surprised. "It is nothing. I must have caught a sharp rock during the fall. Let me see." "I said it is nothing, and I said let me see." Xander crossed the room before she could protest further and reached for the hem of her shirt. She caught his wrist in a grip like iron, and for a moment they stood frozen, her eyes locked on his. "I am a trained field medic," Xander said quietly. "I served in the border wars before I came here. I have sewn up more wounds than I can count, including orc wounds. Let me see." Slowly, her grip loosened. She released his wrist and lifted her shirt, revealing a nasty gash along her ribcage. It was not deep, but it was long and bleeding freely. Xander sucked in a breath through his teeth. "That needs to be cleaned and stitched," he said. "Sit down. I will get my supplies." He kept his medical kit in a wooden box near his bed, the contents carefully organized and regularly checked. It was a habit from his army days that he had never broken. As he gathered what he needed, he was aware of Kara watching him, her posture tense despite the pain she must have been feeling. "This will hurt," he warned as he sat down beside her with a clean cloth and a bottle of strong spirits. "The alcohol burns, but it will keep infection out." She nodded, her jaw set. Xander soaked the cloth and began to clean the wound, working as gently as he could. To her credit, she barely flinched, though he saw her hands clench into fists on her thighs. The wound was clean, at least, no dirt or debris embedded in the flesh. That would make things easier. Threading the needle took a moment with his hands still shaky from the climb, but then he was pressing the edges of the wound together and starting to stitch. He worked in silence, focusing on making each stitch neat and even. He could feel the warmth of her skin under his hands, see the slight rise and fall of her breathing. She smelled like leather and pine and something else, something earthier that he could not quite place. "Why did you save me?" Kara asked suddenly. "You could have let me fall." "No one would have known." Xander did not look up from his work. "Is that what you would have done? Let someone fall, no, she admitted, but I am not human. Neither are you an enemy, Xander said. The war ended 7 years ago. I am done fighting. Tell that to the people in the valley. They threw stones at me when I tried to buy supplies in their market. Xander tied off the last stitch and cut the thread. The people in the valley are idiots, present company excluded. That surprised a short laugh out of her, which turned into a wince as the movement pulled her stitches. Xander reached for a clean bandage and began to wrap it around her torso, his hands steady and professional. You are good at this, Kara observed. Practice, Xander said shortly. He tied off the bandage and sat back. There, keep it clean and dry for the next few days. The stitches should hold, but no climbing until it starts to heal. She pulled her shirt back down and met his eyes. I have to keep moving. I have somewhere I need to be. Where? The northern passes. Beyond the gray peaks, Xander frowned. That is a hard journey in the best of times. With an injury like that, it could kill you. I do not have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not me. She stood up, moving carefully. I will rest here tonight if you will let me. In the morning I will go. Xander wanted to argue, but he could see the set of her jaw and the determination in her eyes. Whatever was driving her north, it was not something she was willing to discuss with a stranger. He nodded and moved to the fireplace, striking sparks from his flint and coaxing the kindling to life. I will make dinner, he said. You will need your strength if you are determined to be stubborn. He had dried venison and root vegetables, which he put together into a simple but filling stew. As it cooked, he found himself acutely aware of Kara's presence in his cabin. She had moved to examine his books, running her fingers over the spines with something like reverence. You raid? She asked. Is that surprising? Most mountain men I have met could barely write their own names. I am not most mountain men. He stirred the stew and added a pinch of salt from his dwindling supply. I was educated before the war. My father was a schoolteacher. Was dead, both my parents, the fever that swept through the valley towns 10 years ago. I am sorry, Xander shrugged. It was a long time ago. Do you raid? I do, or I did. Books were rare in my clan, but I learned when I was young. She pulled one of the volumes off the shelf, a collection of poetry that Xander had traded for in the valley. I have not seen this one before. Take it with you when you go, Xander said impulsively. I have read it a dozen times. She looked at him, startled. I cannot accept that. Why not? It is just sitting on my shelf gathering dust. Books are meant to be read. She held the book carefully as if it were something precious. Thank you, she said softly. They ate in companionable silence, sitting on opposite sides of the fire. The stew was good, hearty and hot, and Xander watched with satisfaction as Kara cleaned her bowl and accepted a second helping. Whatever she was running from or running to, she had not been eating well lately. Why did you come to the mountains? She asked as they finished eating. Xander considered his answer. I got tired of fighting, tired of following orders, tired of killing. He set his bowl aside. After the war ended, I tried to go back to civilian life. Worked as a guard in the valley for a while, but I kept having dreams, bad ones. Waking up reaching for weapons that were not there, so I came up here where it is quiet. And has it helped, the quiet? Some. The dreams are less frequent now. And up here I can at least be useful without hurting anyone. People get lost in the mountains. They need guides, rescues. I can do that. Kara nodded slowly. I understand. After I was cast out from my clan, I tried to join another, but word travels fast among orc settlements. No one wants a traitor. What did you do? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. I refused to kill a human child during a raid. The war was over, but my clan leader said that did not matter. Old hatreds die hard. I told him I would not do it, and he said I was weak. Tainted by human mercy. Her hand went to her side, unconsciously touching the bandage. "So I left before they could execute me." Xander felt something twist in his chest. "You did the right thing." "Did I? I am alone now, no clan, no family. I am trying to reach the northern territories, where they say orcs and humans are learning to live together. But I do not know if that is true or just a story desperate people tell themselves." "It is true," Xander said. "Or at least, it was when I last heard news from the north. There are mixed settlements up there, trade agreements. Some orcs and humans even intermarry." Kara looked at him sharply. "You are lying." "I am not. I have no reason to lie to you." She studied his face, searching for deception. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly. "Then maybe I will make it after all." "You will," Xander said with more confidence than he felt. "Get some rest. I will take the floor tonight. You can have the loft." She looked like she wanted to protest, but exhaustion was written in every line of her body. She climbed the ladder to the loft with careful movements, mindful of her injury, and Xander heard the creak of the bed as she settled in. He banked the fire and rolled himself in a blanket on the floor, his back against the warm hearthstones. Sleep did not come easily. He kept replaying the moment on the cliff, the split second of decision when he had chosen to grab her instead of letting her fall. It would have been so easy to do nothing. No one would have blamed him. An orc woman, a stranger, someone his people had fought a bloody war against, but he had not even hesitated. What did that say about him? He was still thinking about it when he finally drifted off, and his dreams were surprisingly peaceful. Xander woke to the smell of cooking. For a disoriented moment, he thought he was back in the army, in the barracks where someone was always up early making breakfast. Then reality reasserted itself and he sat up, his shoulder protesting sharply. Kara was at the fireplace, stirring something in his small cook pot. She had found his supplies and was making some kind of porridge, he realized. When she heard him moving, she glanced over her shoulder. "I hope you do not mind," she said. "I thought I should repay your hospitality somehow." "I do not mind at all." Xander stood and stretched, working out the kinks from sleeping on the hard floor. "How is your side?" "Sore but manageable. Your stitches held well." She ladled porridge into 2 bowls and they ate quickly, both of them aware that the morning was already well advanced. When they finished, Kara went to her pack and began checking her gear. Xander watched as she examined her ropes, testing each one carefully. The rope that had broken was frayed badly, he saw. It should have been replaced long before she attempted that climb. "Your gear is in bad shape," he said bluntly. "You need new ropes, a better harness, warmer clothes for the high passes. And those boots are not going to last another week of hard travel." "I know," Kara said tightly, "but I spent what coin I had on food. I cannot afford new equipment." Xander made a decision. "Wait here." He climbed to the loft and pulled his old army trunk from under the bed. Inside were things he had kept from his previous life, including his spare climbing gear. He selected what she would need and brought it down. Good rope, barely used. A harness that would fit her better than the worn leather straps she had been using. A pair of climbing boots that were too small for him but might fit her. "Here," he said, setting it all on the table. "Take these." Kara stared at the gear, then at him. "I cannot accept this. Why does everyone keep saying that to me? Yes, you can. I have extras and you need them. This is too much. I have nothing to give you in return." "I do not want anything in return. Just promise me you will be careful in the high passes. And when you get to the northern settlements, if they ask how you got there, tell them a human helped you. Maybe it will convince a few more people that we do not all have to hate each other." Her eyes were suspiciously bright. She reached out and gripped his forearm in the warrior's clasp, her hand strong and warm. "I will tell them, Xander Voss, and I will not forget what you did for me." He helped her repack her gear, making sure everything was secure and properly distributed. When she was ready to leave, he walked her to the trail that led north. "The weather is clear today, but there is a storm coming in tomorrow," he said, scanning the sky. "You will want to find shelter before nightfall. There is a cave system about 10 miles north, just past the Twin Pines. It is marked with a cairn." "I will find it. Thank you, Xander." She turned to go, and Xander felt an unexpected pang of regret. He realized he had enjoyed having someone to talk to, even for just one night. The cabin suddenly seemed very empty. "Kara," he called out. She turned back, eyebrows raised. "If things do not work out in the north, if you need a place to stay, you know where to find me." She smiled, a real smile that showed her small tusks and made her whole face light up. "I will remember that." Then she was gone, disappearing into the forest with the easy stride of someone used to long journeys. Xander stood watching until he could no longer see her, then turned back to his cabin with a sigh. The next few days passed slowly. Xander tried to keep busy with his usual tasks, checking his trap lines, chopping wood, maintaining his equipment. But he found his thoughts drifting north, wondering if Kara had found the cave before the storm hit, if she was staying warm and dry, if her wound was healing properly. He told himself he was being ridiculous. She was a grown woman, a warrior by the look of her, perfectly capable of taking care of herself. But he could not shake the worry that had lodged itself in his chest. A week after she left, he was returning from a hunt when he saw smoke rising from his chimney. Someone was in his cabin. His hand went instinctively to the knife at his belt as he approached cautiously. Through the window he could see a figure moving inside, and his heart leaped when he recognized the distinctive green skin and dark hair. Kara was sitting by his fire, looking haggard and ill. She had a fever, he could tell from 20 paces away, and she was shivering despite the warmth of the room. "What happened?" he demanded, dropping his pack and crossing to her side. "Infection," she said, her voice weak. "I tried to keep it clean like you said, but something got into the wound." "I turned back when I realized how sick I was getting. I am sorry, I did not know where else to go. Do not apologize. Let me see." He unwrapped the bandage and cursed under his breath. The wound was inflamed and hot to the touch, with red streaks radiating out from the stitches. Blood poisoning or close to it. Left untreated, it could kill her within days. "I need to clean this out," he said grimly. "It is going to hurt worse than the stitching did." She nodded, her jaw set. Xander gathered his supplies with practiced efficiency. Hot water, clean cloths, his sharpest knife. He had done this before in the war, cutting away infected flesh to save a soldier's life. But his hands had never shaken like they were shaking now. "Ready?" he asked. "Do it." He cut away the old stitches and cleaned the wound as thoroughly as he dared, washing away the pus and infection. Kara did not scream, but she gripped the edge of the chair hard enough that he heard the wood crack. When he was satisfied that he had gotten all the infection out, he packed the wound with a poultice of healing herbs and wrapped it in fresh bandages. "You need to stay here until this heals," he said firmly. "No arguments. If you try to travel with an infection like this, you will die." "I do not want to impose." "You are not imposing. You are injured and you need help. End of discussion." She looked like she wanted to argue more, but another wave of fever shakes took her, and she sagged in the chair. Xander got her up to the loft and into his bed, piling blankets on top of her shivering form. Then he went back down and began preparing a medicinal tea, the kind his mother used to make when he was sick as a child. For 3 days and nights, Kara burned with fever. Xander stayed by her side, forcing her to drink water and tea, changing her bandages, wiping her face with cool cloths. She was delirious sometimes, muttering in the orcish language that he did not understand. Other times she was lucid, apologizing for being so much trouble trying to get up and insisting she could take care of herself. "Lie down," he told her for what felt like the 100th time. "You are sick. Let someone take care of you for once." "I am not used to it," she admitted, her voice small. "In my clan, weakness was not tolerated. If you could not keep up, you were left behind." "Well, you are not in your clan anymore, and I am not leaving you behind." On the 4th day, the fever broke. Xander woke from an uneasy doze in his chair to find Kara looking at him with clear eyes. The dangerous red flush had faded from her cheeks, and when he checked her wound, it was already starting to heal cleanly. "Welcome back," he said, relief flooding through him. "How do you feel?" "Like I was trampled by a war boar," she said, but she managed a weak smile. "But better. Much better. You saved my life again, Xander Voss. I am starting to make a habit of it." Over the next week, Kara slowly regained her strength. Xander would not let her do much at first, but gradually she was able to move around the cabin, helping with small tasks. They fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side. She proved to be good company, with a dry sense of humor and a wealth of stories from her time with the Iron Ridge clan. Xander found himself looking forward to their evening conversations by the fire. She asked him about his life before the mountains, and he told her about growing up in a small town, about his parents' school, about the friends he had lost in the war. She told him about orcish culture, about the complex honor codes and clan politics that had shaped her life. "We are not so different, humans and orcs," she said one evening. "We both value strength, loyalty, family. We both mourn our dead and celebrate our victories." The war happened because leaders on both sides wanted power and were willing to sacrifice their people to get it. "I know," Xander said. "I figured that out pretty quickly once I actually started fighting orcs. You bleed red just like we do. You cry out in pain just like we do. You die just like we do. Is that why you left the army? Part of it. I also could not stomach the things we were ordered to do sometimes, burning villages, killing prisoners. They said it was necessary, that orcs were not really people, so it did not matter. But I looked in their eyes and I saw people, so I left." Kara was quiet for a moment. "You are a good man, Xander Voss, better than most. I am just a man trying to live with himself. That is what makes you good." 2 weeks after she had returned, Kara's wound had healed enough that she could move without pain. She was stronger now, having had time to rest and eat regularly. Xander knew she would want to leave soon, to continue her journey north. The thought made his chest ache in a way he did not want to examine too closely. "The weather is turning," she said one morning, looking out the window at the gray sky. "Winter is coming early this year. The passes will be snowed in by next month," Xander agreed. "If you want to make it north, you should leave soon." She turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that he could not quite read. "Do you want me to leave?" The question caught him off guard. He opened his mouth to give her an easy lie to say of course she should go, pursue her dreams of the northern settlements. But the words would not come. "No," he said finally. "I do not want you to leave, but that is selfish of me. You have your own life, your own goals. What if I stayed?" She asked quietly, "Just for the winter. The passes are too dangerous in the snow and I could help you. Hunt, gather firewood, keep the cabin maintained. It would be practical." "Practical," Xander repeated, and he could not keep the smile off his face. "Is that what we are calling it?" She crossed the room to stand in front of him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her amber eyes. "What would you call it?" "I would call it the best idea I have heard in a very long time." They stood like that for a moment, the air between them charged with something electric. Then Kara reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Her palm was warm and slightly rough, her grip strong. "I have never felt this way about anyone before," she admitted. "Especially not a human. In my clan it would have been forbidden, shameful. In my town, people would call me a traitor for even talking to you," Xander said. "But I do not care what they think anymore. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. What do you care about?" He looked at her, this fierce orc woman who had crashed into his solitary life and turned everything upside down, who made him laugh and made him think and made him feel things he had thought were long dead. "I care about you," he said simply. "I care about you being safe and happy. I care about you staying here with me if that is what you want. I care about seeing where this goes." Kara smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "I want to stay, not just for the winter, for as long as you will have me." "That might be a very long time." "Good." She leaned in and kissed him, and Xander felt something in his chest crack open. Her lips were soft despite her tusks, gentle despite her strength. He wrapped his arms around her and pulled her close, feeling the solid warmth of her body against his. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Well," Xander said, slightly dazed, "I suppose we should figure out the sleeping arrangements. The loft is not really big enough for 2 people. Then we will build a bigger bed," Kara said practically. "And maybe expand the cabin a bit. Add another room. I noticed you need more storage space." "You want to build onto my cabin." "Our cabin," she corrected. "If I am staying, it is ours now. We should make it work for both of us." Xander felt a grin spreading across his face. "Our cabin. I like the sound of that." They spent the rest of the morning planning the expansion, sketching rough designs in the dirt outside. Kara had good ideas about structure and support, it turned out. Her clan had been builders as well as warriors. Together they figured out how to add a small addition without compromising the integrity of the original structure. Work began the next day. Xander had plenty of timber already cut and cured, and with Kara's help, they made quick progress. She was incredibly strong, able to lift logs that would have taken him significant effort, and her attention to detail was impressive. They worked well together, falling into an easy partnership. As the days passed and the cabin took shape, Xander felt something he had not felt in years: contentment. He woke up each morning eager to start the day, to work alongside Kara, to share meals and stories and quiet moments by the fire. She fit into his life as if she had always been there, filling spaces he had not even known were empty. They learned each other's habits and preferences. Kara liked her tea strong and her breakfast hearty. She was an early riser, but Xander was better at staying up late. She had a habit of humming while she worked, old orcish songs that were surprisingly melodic. He tended to overthink problems while she was more direct and action-oriented. Together, they balanced each other out. One evening, about a month after Kara had decided to stay, they were sitting by the fire when she suddenly spoke up. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice serious, "about why I was really climbing that cliff." Xander set aside the piece of leather he had been working on. "All right. I told you I was heading north to the mixed settlements. That was true, but there was more to it." She stared into the fire, her expression distant. "I was pregnant when I left my clan, my mate's child, but when I refused to kill that human child, he turned his back on me. Said he would not claim a child born to a traitor." Xander felt his hands clench. "What happened to the baby?" "I lost it," Kara said quietly. 2 months into my journey, the stress, the poor food, the constant traveling, my body could not sustain the pregnancy. I was alone in the wilderness when it happened, and for a while I wanted to die too, but something kept me going. Stubbornness, maybe, or the belief that there had to be something better out there than what I had known. "I am so sorry," Xander said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. He moved closer and took her hand. "No one should have to go through that alone." "I am not alone anymore," Kara said, squeezing his hand. "That is what I wanted you to know, that I am not running from something anymore. I am running toward something, toward a future, toward you." Xander pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. He felt her breath against his neck, the steady beat of her heart against his chest. "We will build that future together," he promised. "Whatever it looks like, we will build it together." The first snow came in late October, dusting the mountains with white and making the world seem hushed and magical. Xander and Kara finished the cabin expansion just in time, adding a small bedroom and a proper workroom for equipment and supplies. They built a bigger bed together, laughing as they tried to get the frame level on the slightly uneven floor. That night, they lay together in their new bed, wrapped in warm furs in each other's arms. Kara traced the scars on Xander's chest, each one a story from the war. "You ever miss it?" she asked. "Your old life?" "No," Xander said without hesitation. "This is better. This is real." "It is strange," Kara mused. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I would be living with a human man in the mountains, sharing his bed and his life, I would have called them insane. And yet here I am, and I have never been happier. "We are both insane then," Xander said with a smile. "But I do not mind." Winter settled in hard and cold, but inside the cabin they were warm and content. They developed routines for surviving the harsh season, checking the trap lines on clear days, maintaining the firewood supply, preserving food. Kara taught Xander some orcish recipes, and he taught her how to make the bread his mother used to bake. They read books together in the evenings, sometimes aloud, sometimes in companionable silence. On the longest night of winter, Kara gave Xander a gift. It was a knife she had made herself, forged from a piece of old steel she had been carrying and shaped over many patient hours. The handle was wrapped in leather, and she had carved a simple design into the pommel, 2 hands clasped in friendship. "It is beautiful," Xander said, genuinely touched. "You made this." "My father was a smith before the war. He taught me the basics before he was killed. I wanted you to have something from me, something that would last." Xander had his own gift ready, a cloak he had been secretly working on for weeks. It was made of thick wool lined with rabbit fur, cut to fit Kara's tall frame and dyed a deep forest green. He had embroidered the edges with a pattern of oak leaves, painstaking work that had taken him hours by candlelight. When Kara put it on, her eyes went wide. "Xander, this is incredible. You made this for me. I wanted you to have something warm for when you go outside. And the color matches your eyes." She kissed him then, deep and sweet, and they spent the rest of the longest night wrapped up in each other, letting the world outside fade away. As winter gave way to early spring, a problem emerged that neither of them had anticipated. Xander was running low on supplies that could only be obtained from the valley town: salt, flour, sugar, lamp oil. He had been putting off the trip, reluctant to leave Kara alone and unwilling to expose her to the prejudice he knew she would face. "I will go with you," Kara said when he finally mentioned it. "I am not afraid of their stares." "It is more than stares," Xander said grimly. "Last time you were there, they threw stones. With me beside you, it might be worse. They could see us as some kind of threat. So what do we do? Hide up here forever?" "I do not want to hide you. I just want to keep you safe." Kara crossed her arms. "I am a warrior, Xander. I have fought in battles and survived a clan's rejection. I can handle some prejudiced humans." "I know you can. But I cannot handle the thought of something happening to you." They compromised. They would both go, but they would be cautious. They would get their supplies and leave quickly, not engaging with anyone who seemed hostile. Xander packed his knife and Kara carried a short sword beneath her cloak, both of them hoping they would not need the weapons. The trip down the mountain took most of a day, following trails that were muddy with snowmelt. As they approached the valley, Xander felt his tension rising. He had not been to town in over 6 months, and he had no idea how people would react to seeing him with an orc. They reached the outskirts of the settlement in late afternoon. It was a small place, maybe 200 people, built around a crossroads that saw some trade traffic. Xander led Kara directly to the general store, hoping to complete their business quickly. The storekeeper was a man named Bernard, a gruff older fellow who had always been fair in his dealings. When Xander walked in with Kara behind him, Bernard's eyes widened, but he did not reach for a weapon. "Xander," he said carefully, "did not expect to see you, especially not with company." "Hello, Bernard, I need supplies. Salt, flour, oil, and sugar if you have it." Bernard glanced at Kara, then back at Xander. "That is going to be a problem." "Why?" "Because half the town is already gathering outside. They saw you come in, and they are not happy about you bringing an orc here." Xander looked out the window and cursed under his breath. Sure enough, a crowd was forming in the street. He recognized some of the faces, farmers, craftsmen, people he had helped over the years, but their expressions were hard and closed. "We will take our supplies and leave quietly," Xander said. "No one needs to get hurt." "Too late for that," Bernard said grimly. "Mayor Grayson is out there, and he has been stirring up anti-orc sentiment for months. Talks about how the war should have finished them all off. He sees you with her, he is going to make an example." Kara put a hand on Xander's arm. "We should go. Forget the supplies." "No," Xander said firmly. "We need those supplies, and I am not going to be run out of town by a mob. Bernard, will you sell to me or not?" Bernard hesitated, then nodded. "I will, but you will have to deal with what comes after." He quickly gathered what Xander needed, working fast. Xander paid with the coin he had saved up, trying to ignore the growing noise from outside. When Bernard handed over the sacks of supplies, he leaned in close. "There is a back door," he said quietly, "through the storeroom. It leads to the alley behind the butcher's shop. You can get to the North Trail from there without going through the crowd." "Thank you," Xander said, surprised by the gesture. "I do not agree with Grayson," Bernard said. "War is over. Time to move on. Now go before they break down my door." Xander and Kara moved quickly through the storeroom and out the back door. They were almost to the alley's end when a voice called out behind them. "Voss, stop right there." Xander turned to see Mayor Grayson striding toward them, flanked by 4 men armed with clubs and farm tools. Grayson was a florid man in his 50s, with a politician's smile and a zealot's eyes. "Well, well," Grayson said. "The hermit returns, and he brings a pet orc with him. Have you lost your mind, Voss?" "I have found it, actually," Xander said evenly. "Now if you will excuse us, we are leaving." "Not so fast. You bring a monster into our town, you owe us an explanation." "She is not a monster. Her name is Kara, and she is with me." Grayson's eyes narrowed. "With you? You mean you are sleeping with that thing? You are a disgrace, Voss, a traitor to your race." Xander felt his temper flare, but Kara's hand tightened on his arm in warning. "What I do on my own property is none of your concern, Grayson. We are leaving now." "I cannot allow that. You have brought an enemy into our midst. As mayor, I have a duty to protect our citizens." He gestured to his men. "Take her into custody." The 4 men advanced, and Xander stepped in front of Kara. "You will have to go through me first." "That can be arranged," Grayson said coldly. What happened next happened fast. The first man swung his club at Xander's head, but Xander ducked under it and drove his fist into the man's stomach. The man went down gasping. The second attacker came at Kara, who caught his arm, twisted it, and flipped him over her hip in a move that would have made her old combat instructor proud. The third and fourth men hesitated, suddenly less confident. Xander and Kara stood back to back, ready for the next attack. But before it could come, a new voice rang out. "That is enough." Everyone turned to see an old woman marching into the alley. She was small and bent with age, leaning on a gnarled walking stick, but her voice carried authority. Xander recognized her. Emma Vale, the town's healer and midwife. She had delivered half the babies in the valley and was probably the most respected person in the settlement. "Emma, stay out of this," Grayson said. "This is official business." "Official business, my wrinkled behind," Emma snapped. "You are trying to start a fight with a man who has helped this town more times than I can count. Xander Voss has guided lost travelers to safety, rescued injured climbers, and never asked for more than fair payment. If he says this woman is with him, then that is good enough for me." "She is an orc," Grayson protested, "and she is standing in front of me right now, peaceful as can be, not attacking anyone, not threatening anyone, just trying to leave with her man." Emma turned her sharp gaze on Xander and Kara. "That is right, is it not? You two are together." "Yes, madam," Xander said. Emma nodded, satisfied. "There, see Grayson, they are a couple. Strange, maybe. Unusual, certainly, but not illegal and not your business." She raised her voice so it carried to the crowd that had gathered at the alley's entrance. "Anyone else want to harass this young woman and her man? Because you will answer to me if you do, and I know where all of you live and what ailments you come to me for. Think carefully before you cross me." There was a long moment of tense silence. Then, one by one, the crowd began to disperse. Grayson looked like he wanted to argue, but even he was not foolish enough to go against Emma Vale. He shot Xander a look of pure hatred before stalking away, his remaining men following. Emma turned to Xander and Kara. "You two had better get going before Grayson works himself up to more trouble. And Xander, next time you need supplies, send word ahead. I will have Bernard leave them at the north trailhead so you do not have to come into town." "Thank you, Emma," Xander said sincerely. "I will not forget this. Just be happy, you fool. Life is too short for anything else." She looked at Kara appraisingly. "You take care of him, girl. He is too much of a hero for his own good." Kara smiled. "I will, I promise." They left the valley quickly, not stopping until they were well up the mountain trail. Only when the town was out of sight did they slow down, both of them breathing hard from the tension as much as the exertion. "That was close," Kara said. "Too close. I am sorry you had to go through that. Do not be. It was worth it to see that old woman put the mayor in his place." Kara grinned. "I like her. Emma is one of the good ones. There are not many like her, but they exist." They made it back to the cabin by nightfall, both exhausted but relieved to be home. As they unpacked the supplies, Xander found himself thinking about Emma's words, "Just be happy." It sounded so simple, but it was perhaps the most profound advice he had ever received. "What are you thinking about?" Kara asked, coming up behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist. "About how lucky I am," Xander said. "About how I never expected to find someone like you. About how I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." Kara rested her chin on his shoulder. "That sounds like a very good plan." "Kara Stonefist," Xander said, turning in her arms to face her. "Will you marry me?" She blinked, clearly surprised. "Marry you? Yes. I know it is not traditional. I do not have a ring, and I am not sure how orc proposals work, and we will probably have to do it ourselves, because I doubt any priest will marry us. But I love you, and I want everyone to know that we belong to each other. So will you marry me?" Kara's eyes were bright with tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course I will marry you, you ridiculous human." They kissed, laughing and crying at the same time, and Xander felt like his heart might burst from the sheer joy of it all. The wedding, such as it was, took place a week later. There were no guests, no officiant, no formal ceremony, but Xander did not need any of that. He and Kara stood together in front of their cabin at sunset, holding hands and speaking their vows to each other. "I promise to stand by you," Xander said. "To support you and protect you and love you for as long as I draw breath. I promise to be your partner in all things, to listen when you speak and respect your choices. I promise to build a life with you that is worthy of the courage it took for both of us to be here." Kara's voice was thick with emotion when she spoke. "I promise to honor you with my strength and my loyalty. I promise to share your burdens and celebrate your joys. I promise to be honest with you always, even when the truth is hard. I promise to love you not in spite of our differences, but because of them. You have given me a home when I had none, and I will spend my life making sure you never regret that choice." They exchanged their tokens. Xander gave Kara a bracelet he had woven from copper wire and mountain flowers, and Kara gave Xander a ring she had forged herself, simple and strong. They put them on each other with trembling hands, and when they kissed, it felt like a promise sealed. "I am yours," Xander whispered. "And I am yours," Kara replied. They celebrated with a simple feast of roasted meat and fresh bread, drinking the last of Xander's wine under the stars. The mountains seemed to approve, the wind carrying the scent of pine and the promise of spring. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. They were husband and wife now, bound together by love and choice if not by law. Xander had never been happier. Every morning he woke up next to Kara, and every morning he was amazed that this was his life now. As spring turned to summer, they made improvements to their homestead. Kara wanted a garden, so they cleared a patch of land and built raised beds. Xander taught her about the plants that grew well in the mountains, and she taught him orcish techniques for soil enrichment. Together, they coaxed vegetables and herbs from the thin mountain soil. They also started taking in travelers who needed help. Word had spread somehow that the cabin in the mountains was a safe place for those fleeing prejudice. Twice that summer, they sheltered mixed couples, humans and orcs who had fallen in love and been cast out by their communities. Xander and Kara gave them food and shelter and advice, sending them north to the settlements where they might find acceptance. "We are becoming a way station," Kara observed one evening after their latest guests had departed. "Is that a bad thing?" "No. I think it is exactly what we are meant to be doing, showing people that it is possible, that humans and orcs can build something beautiful together." In late summer, Emma Vale made the long climb up to their cabin. She arrived tired but determined, leaning heavily on her walking stick. "I came to check on you two," she announced, accepting Xander's help to sit down. "Make sure you had not killed each other yet." "We are doing well," Kara said, bringing her a cup of tea. "Better than well, actually." Emma looked around the cabin with sharp eyes, taking in the improvements, the garden, the obvious care they had put into their home. "I can see that. You have made a good life here." "Thank you for what you did in town," Xander said. "We would not have gotten out of there without you. HMPH. Grayson is a fool, but he is not dangerous, not really, just scared of change." She sipped her tea. "There is talk in the valley, you know, about you too. Some of it is nasty, but some of it is curious. People want to know if the stories are true, if a human and an orc can really make it work." "What do you tell them?" Kara asked. "I tell them to mind their own business," Emma said tartly. "But between you and me, I tell the young people to be brave. To love who they love and damn the consequences. The world is changing, whether the old fools like Grayson like it or not. You two are just ahead of the curve." She stayed for dinner and overnight, sleeping in their guest alcove. In the morning, before she left, she pulled Xander aside. "That woman loves you fiercely," Emma said. I can see it in how she looks at you. Do not ever take that for granted." "I will not," Xander promised. "Good, and one more thing." Emma's eyes twinkled. "When you have children, I expect you to bring them down for me to meet. I do not care if they have green skin or tusks or pointed ears. Babies are babies, and I love them all." Xander felt his throat tighten. "We will. I promise." The idea of children had not really occurred to him before, but after Emma left, he could not stop thinking about it. What would their children look like? Would they be more human or more orc? Would they face even more prejudice than Kara did? That night, he brought it up with Kara. "Have you thought about having children someday?" She was quiet for a moment. "I have. After I lost my baby, I thought I would never want to try again. The pain was too great. But with you, I find myself thinking about it, imagining a little one running around, getting into trouble." "I want that too," Xander admitted. "But I worry about what kind of world we would be bringing them into, the prejudice they would face." "They would face challenges," Kara agreed, "but they would also have us. Two parents who love them and each other, who can teach them to be strong and kind and brave. That is more than many children have." "When you are ready," Xander said, taking her hand. "There is no rush, but when you are ready, I would be honored to have a family with you." Kara smiled and kissed him. "Soon," she promised, "but not quite yet. I want to enjoy having you to myself for a while longer." Autumn came with its usual blaze of color, the aspens turning gold and the scrub oaks flaming red. Xander and Kara spent their days preserving food for winter, hunting and smoking meat, gathering herbs and roots. They were as prepared as they had ever been for the cold months ahead. One crisp October morning, they were checking their trap lines when they heard shouting from below. Someone was on the trail, calling for help. Xander and Kara exchanged a glance and hurried toward the sound. They found a young man, barely 20, supporting an injured woman. Both of them were human and both looked terrified. The woman's leg was badly broken, the bone visible through torn flesh. "Please," the man gasped. "We were climbing and she fell. I heard there was a healer up here, someone who helps people. Please, you have to help her." "Bring her inside," Xander said immediately. "Quickly." They got the woman into the cabin and onto the table. Xander examined the leg with practiced hands while Kara boiled water and prepared bandages. It was a bad break, but he had dealt with worse. "This is going to hurt," he told the woman, who was pale and shocky. "But I can set it. You will walk again, but you will need to stay off it for weeks while it heals." The woman nodded, biting her lip. The young man held her hand as Xander worked, setting the bone and splinting the leg. It was delicate, painful work, but Xander's hands were steady and sure. When it was done, the woman had passed out from the pain, which was probably a mercy. "She will be all right," Xander told the young man. "But she cannot travel for at least a month. Can you stay?" "I do not know," the man said, looking around nervously. His eyes kept landing on Kara, taking in her green skin and tusks. "I do not have much money." "We are not asking for money," Kara said. "You can help with chores while you are here. That will be payment enough." The young man, who introduced himself as Thomas, stayed. At first he was wary of Kara, giving her a wide berth and flinching whenever she came near. But as the days passed and he saw how she and Xander interacted, how they worked together and cared for each other, his attitude began to shift. One evening, about a week into their stay, Thomas approached Kara while she was cooking dinner. "I need to apologize," he said awkwardly. "I have been rude, afraid, really. I have never met an orc before except in battle, and I thought all of you were monsters, but you are not. You are just a person who is helping us when you did not have to." Kara smiled. "Apology accepted. Fear is natural when you have been taught to hate. But you are learning. That takes courage." "How did you and Xander meet?" Thomas asked. if you do not mind me asking." So Kara told him the story, the broken rope, the cliff, Xander's refusal to let her fall. Thomas listened with wide eyes, and when she finished, he shook his head in wonder. "That is incredible, like something out of a bard's tale." "It felt pretty real at the time," Kara said dryly. "But yes, we were lucky. Lucky that Xander was there, and lucky that he was the kind of man who would save an orc instead of letting her die." Thomas's companion, whose name was Sarah, recovered slowly but steadily under Xander's care. By the time a month had passed, she was able to walk with the help of a crutch, though she would have a limp for the rest of her life. The day they left, Sarah hugged both Xander and Kara tightly. "You saved my life," she said. "Both of you, I will never forget that." "Just pass it on," Xander said. "Help someone else when they need it. That is all the thanks we need." After Thomas and Sarah left, winter closed in hard. It was the coldest season Xander could remember, with snow piling higher than the cabin's windows and temperatures that made going outside dangerous. But inside, they were warm and safe, with plenty of food and each other's company. It was during those long winter nights that Kara told Xander she was ready to try for a child, to take that leap of faith into the future. Xander held her close and whispered his love, and they spent that night wrapped up in each other, making promises and plans. Spring came late that year, but when it arrived, it brought news. Emma Vale climbed up to the cabin in early April with a letter in her hand and a wide smile on her face. "It is official," she announced. "The Northern Territories have signed a treaty with the Valley settlements. Mixed marriages are legal now. Orcs and humans can marry with full legal recognition." Xander felt a wave of relief wash over him. "That is incredible news. It gets better. There is a magistrate coming through next month to register marriages and handle legal matters. If you two want to make it official in the eyes of the law, you can." Kara squeezed Xander's hand. "We should do it. Not because we need a piece of paper to prove our love, but because it will make it easier. For travel, for inheritance, for our children if we have them." "Then we will do it," Xander agreed. The magistrate arrived on a sunny day in May, an efficient woman in her 40s who set up a temporary office in the valley town. Xander and Kara made the trip down together, and this time no one threw stones. There were stares, yes, and whispered comments. But there was also curiosity, and a few people even smiled. The official ceremony was brief and bureaucratic, nothing like their private vows on the mountain. But when the magistrate pronounced them legally married and handed them a certificate, Xander felt a sense of completion. They were recognized now, by law and society. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Emma threw them a small celebration at her house, inviting the few townspeople who were open-minded enough to attend. Bernard came, and a handful of younger couples, and even a few older folks who remembered the war and were tired of fighting. It was not a large gathering, but it was genuine, and Xander found himself moved by the acceptance. As summer approached, Kara began to show signs that their attempts at starting a family had been successful. She was pregnant, though they kept it quiet at first, not wanting to jinx it. But as the weeks passed and she remained healthy, they began to let themselves hope. "I am terrified," Kara admitted one evening, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "What if something goes wrong again?" "Then we will face it together," Xander said. "But I believe everything will be fine. You are strong and you are healthy and you have me to take care of you." "That is what I am afraid of," Kara teased. "You hovering over me for 9 months, worrying about every little thing." "I will try not to hover, but I make no promises." True to his word, Xander was attentive throughout the pregnancy, perhaps overly so. He insisted Kara rest more, take on fewer chores. She tolerated his fussing with good humor, knowing it came from a place of love and worry. Emma came up regularly to check on her, declaring her the healthiest pregnant woman she had ever seen. "Orc constitution," Kara said proudly. "We are built for this." Their child was born on a cold January morning, arriving with a lusty cry that echoed through the cabin. Xander caught the baby with trembling hands, tears streaming down his face as he placed the infant on Kara's chest. Emma supervised, but there were no complications. The birth was as smooth as such things could be. "A girl," Emma announced, "and she is perfect." The baby had her mother's green skin, though lighter than Kara's, and tiny buds that might become tusks someday. But her eyes were Xander's, a clear gray blue, and her hair was dark like his. She was beautiful, a perfect blend of both parents. "What will you name her?" Emma asked. Xander and Kara had discussed this endlessly. They wanted a name that honored both their heritages that would work in human and orc society. "Ilara," Kara said softly. "It means light in the old orcish tongue." "Xander Voss," Xander said, testing the sound. "I love it." Emma stayed for a week, helping them adjust to life with a newborn. She showed them how to swaddle Ilara, how to help with feeding, all the little tricks that new parents needed. When she finally left, she hugged them both tightly. "You are going to be wonderful parents," she said. "That little girl is lucky to have you." The first months were exhausting but joyful. Ilara was a good baby, healthy and alert, with a piercing cry when she wanted something but a sweet temperament the rest of the time. Xander found himself completely besotted, spending hours just watching her sleep or holding her tiny hand. Kara was a natural mother, patient and nurturing but also practical. She handled the sleepless nights with equanimity and seemed to instinctively know what Ilara needed. Xander sometimes felt like he was fumbling in comparison, but Kara assured him he was doing fine. "You are a wonderful father," she told him one night as he rocked Ilara back to sleep. "Look at how she trusts you, how safe she feels in your arms." "I just want to protect her from everything," Xander said. "Every harsh word, every bit of prejudice. I know I cannot, but I want to." "We will protect her together," Kara said. "And we will teach her to be strong enough to face what we cannot shield her from. She is going to grow up knowing she is loved by both her parents and by people like Emma. That will give her strength." As Ilara grew from an infant into a toddler, the cabin felt more alive than ever. Her laughter filled the rooms, and her curiosity was endless. She was walking by 9 months, climbing by a year, and talking in short sentences by 18 months. She had her mother's strength and her father's stubbornness, a combination that promised interesting teenage years. Word of their family spread through the valley and beyond. Some people were scandalized, others curious. But slowly, attitudes began to shift. Other mixed couples came to visit, seeking advice and support. Xander and Kara welcomed them all, their cabin becoming a beacon of hope for those brave enough to love across the species divide. On Ilara's second birthday, they threw a small celebration. Emma came, of course, and so did Bernard and a few other friends from the valley. Thomas and Sarah returned with their own newborn, a human child they proudly showed off. It was a joyful gathering, full of laughter and good food and the sense that the world was changing for the better. That evening, after everyone had left and Ilara was asleep in her bed, Xander and Kara sat on their porch watching the sunset. The mountains were painted in shades of gold and purple, and a cool breeze carried the scent of pine. "You ever think about that day on the cliff?" Kara asked. "What might have happened if you had not caught me?" "Sometimes," Xander admitted, "but not with regret, more with gratitude. That moment brought us together. It gave us this life. I think about it too, about how close I came to dying and how you refused to let me fall. You saved me in more ways than one, Xander. You gave me a home, a family, a future. You gave me those things too, Xander said, taking her hand. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You made me live again. You made me hope again. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the stars began to appear. Inside the cabin, they could hear Alara making small, sleepy sounds and the fire crackling in the hearth. It was peaceful, this life they had built together. I love you, Kara said softly. I will love you until the mountains crumble. And I love you, Xander replied, for as long as the stars shine. Years passed and their family grew. Alara gained a younger brother, a sturdy boy they named Rowan, who had his father's coloring but his mother's ears and strength. The cabin expanded again to accommodate their growing family, with Xander and Kara working side by side as they always had. The prejudice that had once been so virulent slowly faded, though it never disappeared entirely. But with each passing year, more mixed couples appeared. More families like theirs. The settlements in the northern territories flourished, becoming true melting pots where humans and orcs lived and worked together. Emma lived to see Alara's 10th birthday, before passing peacefully in her sleep, content in the knowledge that the world she was leaving was better than the one she had been born into. They buried her in the valley with full honors, and half the town came to mourn. Xander and Kara spoke at her funeral, thanking her for the courage she had shown in supporting them when no one else would. Xander taught his children to climb the mountains he loved, showing them the secret trails and teaching them to respect the wilderness. Kara taught them about orcish history and culture, making sure they understood both sides of their heritage. Together, they raised two confident, kind, strong children who saw the world with clear eyes. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Xander and Kara climbed back to the cliff where they had first met. It took longer than it used to, as neither of them was as young as they had been. But they made it, standing together on the ledge where Xander had caught Kara's harness and refused to let go. Thank you, Kara said, looking down at the drop below, for holding on. Always, Xander replied. Then, now, forever, I will always hold on. They kissed there on the cliff, the wind whipping around them. Two people who had found love in the most unlikely of places and built a life that defied all expectations. Behind them lay 2 decades of struggles and triumphs, of tears and laughter, of building something beautiful from nothing. Ahead of them lay whatever years remained, and they would face them together, hand in hand, the mountain man and the orc woman who had proven that love could bridge any divide. Their story became legend in the valley and beyond. Parents told it to their children as a bedtime tale, a story about courage and compassion and choosing to save someone when you could just as easily let them fall. It inspired others to be brave, to love fearlessly, to build bridges instead of walls. But for Xander and Kara, it was simply their life. The rope had snapped halfway down the cliff, and a mountain man had caught an orc woman and refused to let go. From that single moment of choice had sprung everything they held dear: their love, their family, their future. As they descended the cliff together, moving carefully but confidently, Kara looked back at Xander and smiled. The same smile she had given him 20 years ago when he had offered her shelter in his cabin. The smile that said she trusted him completely, that she knew they would face whatever came together. "Race you home," she said, her eyes dancing with mischief. "You are on," Xander replied, grinning. They took off down the trail, laughing like the young people they had been, racing toward the cabin where their children waited and their life together continued. The mountains watched over them as they had always done, ancient and eternal, bearing witness to the love story that had unfolded on their slopes. When they finally reached the cabin, breathless and exhilarated, Alara and Rowan came running out to greet them. The family gathered together on the porch as the sun set, telling stories and making plans for tomorrow. And in that moment, everything was perfect. The rope had snapped, but Xander had held on. And in holding on, he had found everything he never knew he needed. Love, family, purpose, home. All because he had made a choice in a split second on a cliff face. A choice that echoed through the years and changed not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. That night, as they lay in bed with moonlight streaming through the window, Kara whispered, "I would fall 1,000 times if I knew you would be there to catch me." "And I would catch you every time," Xander murmured back. "Every single time." They drifted off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together. The mountain man and the orc woman, bound by love stronger than rope, deeper than prejudice, more enduring than the mountains themselves. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their love eternal. And that truly was all that mattered.